My name is Michel. It's always an honor to visit with my guest today. He's one of the pioneers of electronic music. His new album is titled Oxymore. Jean-Michel Jarre, thank you for taking time to visit with us today. It is wonderful to see you again.
My pleasure, and always great to see you, Michel. And this time, not in the real world in LA, but between Paris and LA through screen. But you look fantastic, and I can hear you clearly. So I'm ready.
Oh, thank you so much. You look wonderful also. It really
Thank
is.
you very much.
I cherish these moments. I know you know that, but I just still have to say I appreciate these opportunities because I grew up idolizing you, loving your music, and you're my desert island composer.
Thank you very much.
I love Oxymore. I feel like it's another new chapter for you musically. What were you thinking about or imagining when you started to conceive the music on this album?
You know, Michel, I've always been interested by relationship between music and space. And even in times of when I started, I was really to try, for Oxygen, but even before, to try to enhance the stereo, to widen the stereo field. I mean, to try find with delays and reverb to try to enhance that. And I always thought that, you know, stereo doesn't exist in nature. When this kind of frontal relationship with sound doesn't exist when we are in a day-to-day life, we are surrounded by sounds. And then when you are, and the stereo has been created by clever guys in the 1940s to try to just create a delay between the left channel and the right channel to create the illusion of space. And I always thought that one day technology will allow us really to go back to a very natural way of listening to music, like where we are listening to life in our day-to-day life, and that like we are doing we are listening to our natural environment. And then the good news is these days technology is allowing us to do it, and also to be able to share the experience, especially with binaural and with headphones, with lots of people. And so I decided to create an album entirely from scratch, to conceive and compose an album in 360, which is quite different from lots of spatial audio experience we have these days, where people are producing music in stereo and then they are specializing it, remixing it in immersive sounds. For me, this idea is a little bit like colorizing a black and white movie. It doesn't really make sense. It can be interesting for in some case, but most of the time it's rather disappointing because it has not been done for that. Frankly, to listen to Frank Sinatra in surround sound with the voice of Frank Sinatra turning around my head, I think is stupid. Is silly. And you know, Frank Sinatra has been recorded most of the time in mono. Then okay, let's go for mono. And if tomorrow somebody wants to produce a tune, a track in mono, of course you can do it. But the great thing with immersive sound is actually you can really be inside the music for the first time, and to compose for this new medium is a total game changer. And I'm convinced that in a few years' time from now, we'll certainly consider stereo with the same nostalgia as we are considering gramophone mono of our grandparents, you know.
I understand. I wanted to ask you, I could go so many different ways. I've got so many questions that are related to this. So let's take them maybe one at a time. One of the questions that comes to mind is you composed an album in the early 2000s called Arrow, which was, as I understand, if I remember correctly, that was done in 5.1 channel surround sound. Is this similar to that, but just more immersive? Is that a fair way to describe it?
No, in those days when, because I've always been, as I told you, always been interested by space and try to create a kind of surround atmosphere, a little bit like we can have in a Dolby Atmos movie theater, you know, for movies. And Aero was actually based on the idea of taking, because I had no other choice at that moment, taking existing music from my own catalog, produced in stereo, and to make them as immersive as possible with the tools I had at that time. The big difference with Oxymore is actually today we can really use tools to create from scratch music in 360, and it's of course a totally different situation.
This album to me feels a little bit more abstract. Was that a deliberate approach on your part? It took me the first time I listened to it, it was a little more challenging, and as I've listened to it more and more, I absolutely love it from beginning to end. It's very moving, very beautiful, but it feels a little bit more like your earlier works. I'm thinking at the very, very beginning of your career, things like Happiness is a Sad Song or Iraqi Hitchhiker, the kind of musique concrète approach to composing where sound plays a very prominent part instead of just using the traditional instruments, if you will.
Absolutely, Oxymore is also a kind of a tribute to the French way of doing electronic music that we don't know enough in worldwide. I mean, in the late 40s, you have people such as Pierre-Henry and Pierre Schaeffer, who are two great composers who actually changed the world of music, because they've been the first one to say, okay, we can introduce noises, sounds into acoustic sounds or musical instrument, or the sound of the body, human body, or the sound of the streets, and to integrate them as part of a music composition. And that was totally revolutionary at that time. And if you think of it, they defined the grammar and the way we are composing today. Whatever we do today, electronic music, hip hop, techno, pop, we all integrating sound effects or sound design in our music production. So, and that it all came from these guys from France, from Germany, from continental Europe in the late 40s. These guys defined the vocabulary of today, whatever we do. And this is the reason why I wanted, through Oxymore, paying tribute to them by actually mixing this technique of field recording of what became sampling later on, and also conceiving the album as a kind of journey from the big bang of electronic music, if I can say so, the origin, to something much more festive or much more dynamic and almost dance floor and techno-oriented from the beginning to the end. So it's a little bit like coming from, starting from almost dark to light, or something more violent or brutal to something more, not peaceful, but more dynamic, more festive, more positive.
I think you've achieved this with this recording, in my opinion, because when I listen to it, as you listen more, you can hear more of the layers, and that initial maybe attack of sound actually gives way to a lot of subtle differences and nuances in the composition. And you're right, it does overall have sort of an upbeat and festive let's say vibe, if you will. The music has that. I'm wondering, when you look at yourself, you still have such a passion. I love that, for exploring new territories, and technologically, you're also very excited about various things. I remember a few years ago when we spoke, you said that you still feel like your best composition is yet to come. Is that the spirit with which you're still approaching music today when you're making Oxymore? Are you still thinking that way?
Absolutely. I think that, for me, music composition is linked with excitement and curiosity. I'm not into nostalgia. I'm not really interested with what I've done. I know that lots of artists, they are in a sense reassured by the fact that okay, they did things in their life which encountered the audience and meet the audience, and then they think it's quite comfy to just keep, I mean, and explore this territory. I'm not into this at all. You know, I think about Kraftwerk, for instance, and and I have lots of respect for what Kraftwerk did, but you know, they're skipping for almost 30 years, exploring the existing catalog like a piece of museum, you know, and I'm not really interested by that. I'm really interested by today and tomorrow. I'm not a geek. I'm not necessarily interested by technology for the sake of it. I'm as at the same time, you're not asking a piano player to fix a piano. It's the same thing. But I always been convinced that technology is dictating styles, as we talked in last time we met in LA. The fact that so it's because the violin has been invented that we have Vivaldi. It's because we invented synthesizers, like people like me or others are doing the music we are doing. And you know, it's and these days with the tools we have for immersive worlds, it's such a fantastic opportunity for on the creative point of view. So I'm trying to take this opportunity, and you know, it's really linked to the idea that as musicians we always hijack technology to use technology which were not necessarily devised or designed for us, but we are taking it for creating as pretext, as tools to create our own music. And today it's a big luck for young artists to live today, and it's a bit what I'm saying is quite the reverse of what lots of people are thinking about these days, where you say, oh, there is formats, you have so many, you have music is everywhere on internet and all that. Yes and no. I mean, it's the beauty of it is actually you can produce, you can create, produce, distribute your music through the internet from your living room, and you can also, I mean, hijacking so many different tools to make your own music. So, and I think it's a great thing.
It's almost like I feel like it's created. It's more open, right? I mean, when you created Oxygen and Equinox, you did them in a home studio, which was rare in the days when you did them. And to this day, I still think those are the two best albums ever created by a human. I think those should be sent out to space. So if aliens ever find it, they'll know what humans are capable of. But today, that technology is accessible to most people. So a lot more people can make music, correct? I mean, it's created maybe freedom. It's opened up the opportunities for young artists.
You know, we should stop considering that technology is the solution. Technology is the mean. It's just a way to achieve what you have in your own heart or in yourself. And it's not, the technology is not giving you not easing the process of expressing who you are. We should never forget that in Western music, you just have 12 notes. And with these 12 notes, we did millions of songs. So it means what? That whatever the technology and the tools you use, what's important is yourself, is what you want to express. And you can do this with a plugin or with a tam-tam or with a violin or a clarinet. You know, it's and each generation is is a reflection of their time, of its time, and at the same time also, I mean, using the tools of that generation. And this is the reason why today is quite interesting, because beyond tools, the technology is allowing us for the first time to go back to a natural way of listening to music. Like, I mean, as I said, going from black and white to color, or going from painting to sculpture, being inside the music. And of course, that requires a different way of composition. propose, to share with the audience a total new experience based on the fact that the composition process is totally different.
And is there any, would you be interested in taking this binaural approach to composition, to older compositions of yours? Is there any reason to do that? Would you be interested in doing something like that?
No, as I said, music produced in stereo should stay in stereo. Having said that, I would make some exception in my work. I would say that for different reasons, but very specific reasons, Oxygen and Zuluk could be interesting to be rethought, reimagined in 360.
All right. I also wanted to, we were talking about technology. I know that you're very interested in virtual reality. Can you explain what fascinates you about VR specifically?
I mean, VR is still a fantastic opportunity to explore new territories. I mean by this that, it's like the beginning of cinema. At the beginning of cinema, lots of people were saying, from the theater world especially, saying, all these guys moving on a white screen, they are not real actors. A real actor is somebody on stage in front of a real audience. And the movies and cinema became the major art form we know, and not weakened theater, but reinforced living shows. The same thing as VR. VR should be considered as a mode of expression in itself, something different from video games, different from movies. And the great thing about this is actually you can create lots of visual and sounds which you cannot create in the real world. And tomorrow you can have young artists creating their own stage design from their living room with having access to fantastic tools and rather cheap tools. But talking about music and my interest for VR, I think that when we're talking metaverse and VR, everybody's talking about visuals. But actually, the visual field is 140 degrees. The audio field is 360 degrees. So the sound is at the center of metaverse and center of VR. And we should think that the immersive feeling is first of all coming from your ears before your eyes. And this is the reason why it's a fantastic opportunity for young artists to explore VR audio-wise also.
I also wanted to mention that this year marks the 40th anniversary of the concerts in China, and you've just re-released the album in double vinyl and also on CD to commemorate the occasion. Can you talk just a little bit about the experience of doing those shows in Beijing and Shanghai back in 1980?
Playing China in those days were like playing on the moon. I mean, for both sides. For me, because it was like playing in a total new territory, and all these people at that time had no idea about Western culture for the past 30, 40 years. They had no idea about who the Beatles were, or Charlie Chaplin, or movies, Western movies, or Western culture. And on the other side, I was bringing over there a show which could be considered on a Western point of view totally new, with laser and lights and electronic instruments, something quite new on a Western point of view. So you can imagine what it was. I mean, to bring this in China, it was an absolute shock. I mean, cultural shock, and it's of course one of my most special memories of my life. And this album is very special to me because actually I always consider this album as a studio album and a live album, because half of the tracks of the songs are original. Like I could have done a studio album just with a half of the album, and also it's like a journey, an audio journey. Is like a diary made of sounds, uh, and uh, and to try to convey in sounds and music the fantastic experience of what I felt from the country at that time.
Absolutely. It is one of my favorite albums. It's your album that introduced me to your music, so it has a very special place in
Really?
my
Ah, yes, you
yeah,
told me that. Yes, I remember.
yeah, it is really a beautiful album, and I agree with you. I always felt like it was kind of a studio album, but it also had and I love the versions of some of the tracks like Equinox 7 or Equinox 4 that are on the album. The live versions or Magnetic Fields 2. They are really different. You know, you really composed sort of variations to the original compositions, which makes them very unique.
Yeah, I think that it's funny because you mentioned Magnetic Fields 2, and I think it's a better version than the original. I
I
really
I
love
lo-
this one.
yeah,
I really love
I love the live version. I love the live version of that one.
and especially the outro with the chorus and all that. It's conveying a kind of frantic type of mood, which I
Yes,
really enjoying. Hearing it this back in time these
yes.
days. And I
So
love the fact that I mean, it's the Sony got the record company got the idea of doing this 40th anniversary edition, and I thank them because I think it's a great idea.
and with a new album, Oxymore, any plans to go on tour with this new album? What are you thinking?
Yes, I'm really considering and thinking with my team around me how we can bring this fantastic project on stage. And I did for the release of the album 6 showcases in Paris, where we put a kind of 360 PA systems where the audience was inside this kind of circle, and the result was absolutely amazing, fantastic. And I really would like to share this with the audience internationally and hopefully in the US, of course.
A couple of last questions. You mentioned the moon earlier when you referenced playing in China, comparing it to playing on the moon. Are you interested in the Artemis missions of NASA going to the moon and then the plans to go to Mars? Is that of interest to you at all?
Of course, funnily enough, I was on the list before the Houston concert and before uh, the crash of Challenger of the because they opened the list for potential civilians, and I was on the list for going to the moon one day because it was an open list, and of course, I mean now it's quite strange because we are 50 years later, and the moon seems already an old story, which is quite amazing. And actually, it's so close to us. It's strange that during these 60 years, I mean, it's like if we went backwards, we are going slower because after the Concorde, during the Concorde time, the plane, we were able to go from Paris to New York in 3 hours and 20 minutes, and this is over. We still take 7 hours, something, and the same with the moon, and of course the real big step is Mars, and that's another story. To go there is not for tomorrow morning still.
Yes, yes. Well, one last question for you. I know we're short on time, but I wanted to ask you. Earlier this year, we lost Vangelis, and I wish that you and Vangelis would just live forever, so that you can keep just composing the beautiful music, and we can keep hearing that music. Did you ever meet Vangelis, and do you have any stories you could share about your encounter with him?
No, yes, of course. No, we met sometimes, but we never, unfortunately, we never had the opportunity to collaborate. It was we had maybe one possibility in Greece when I did the concert in Acropolis, but then he was busy on other projects. And talking about eternity and and something that could last forever. I created something that is very dear to my heart. Is an app called Eon, and this idea is based on the idea of an infinite album, where I spent 1 year to develop this, with putting lots of different cells and excerpts of music from 10 seconds to 3 minutes, and to create with a French startup a kind of algorithm where you can play this forever. It is never going to be the same. Each time you are going to start again, you are going to start in a different way. And this is the pure definition of an infinite album, and also the fact that every listener will have a specific version of Eon. And like the way we are talking about now, we know that this moment we are spending together with Yvonne checking us will never happen in the same way. It's never going to happen again. And this is the beauty of Eon, in my opinion, is the fact that it's an infinite album that will last after we'll all disappear. And this is, sorry, Fiona? And you can restart it regularly. Yes, and you can, of course, always restart the process. And if you're bored after a while, you say, okay, you play stop, you play play, and you go to somewhere else, and you start again a different way. Like in life, you don't like one situation, you can leave the room, leave the situation. It's exactly the same way. And I think it's one of the most interesting projects I've been involved with so far, philosophically and musically.
I enjoy listening to it. I have the app and I'll open it once in a while and listen. I agree with you. It does evolve. It does change. It's fascinating. And I know we're running short on time. Once again, Jean-Michel Jarre's brand new album is called Oxymore, and his re-release of the concerts in China is also available now. Jean-Michel Jarre, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us. Hopefully we'll see you again next time, maybe in person and maybe on tour.
Thank you, Michel. Yes, hopefully I'm preparing some plans to meet with you in real life, for sure.
That sounds wonderful. I'll look forward to that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay. See you soon.